All right, okay. Good afternoon, America. This is Jackson Catrone. Welcome to the Red, White, and Blue Zone, where today we'll be giving our breakdown and reaction to all of last night's election results. So, it is November 5th, 2025. Last night was the election night of 2025, where there were about five big elections to look at, maybe more than that. The ones we're going to go through today are obviously New York City mayor, New Jersey governor, the governorship, vice governorship, and our lieutenant governorship, and attorney general offices in Virginia, the California ballot measures, and we're just going to look at a couple of things from around the country. So, let's get into it. All right, here's our NBC view, if you can see here. Let me bring this full screen. So, let's start with New York City mayor. So, the polls were pretty much spot on. If anything, they were underestimating or overestimating how many votes Cuomo would get. But this pretty much aligns with the average. Sliwa got less votes than anticipated, which, although I was campaigning for him, I was exactly expecting that to happen. Adams got a few more votes than intended for someone having dropped out, but if we zoom in here, we could see that Zohran Mamdani, who will be the next mayor of New York City, he won 4 of the 5 boroughs, and those also being the 4 more populated boroughs. Up here where I live in the Bronx, 51%, 52% Manhattan, 47% in Queens, 56% in Brooklyn, and then here in Staten Island, Cuomo won. Sliwa couldn't even win in Staten Island, which really is a reflection on Sliwa as a candidate and the failure that he was. Now, people are going to be blaming Sliwa for this. They're going to say he should have dropped out way earlier and endorsed Cuomo. He shouldn't have stuck it out. But if you look here, Mamdani still got over 50% if you combine Sliwa and Cuomo's total votes. And yes, this is only with 93%. But if you combine Sliwa and Cuomo's total votes, they still wouldn't have beaten Mamdani. You can argue that Sliwa would have been able to force higher turnout by campaigning with Cuomo. And that is the theme of this election, that there was a massive amount of Democrat turnout, especially compared to last year, to 2024. But yeah, this was exactly as expected. Ever since Mamdani clinched the Democrat primary, it wasn't disputed who was going to win this election. It was just going to be about how close it was, and he was able to, although just barely breaking 50%, he was able to get, if you see here, about 300,000 more votes than former Governor Cuomo. It's telling. It's going to be how will this election affect the midterms? New York State has a gubernatorial election next year where most likely it will be Elise Stefanik and Kathy Hochul, and according to some polling, Stefanik will be projected to win after these results. Now let's go to California. Let's go to the ballot measure. So this ballot measure, what it essentially does is it is in response to the gerrymandering in Texas, and what it will do is it will override the California Constitution, which requires an independent commission to redistrict, and it will allow the government of California to redistrict. As you can see here, a resounding yes on it. This pretty much seems to be along party lines, percentage-wise. About, if we look to the polls about who's registered Republican, who's registered Democrat, who voted for Trump or Harris, this is going to be pretty similar results to that. So this shouldn't be surprising at all. They'll gerrymander 5 Republicans out of their congressional seats to match Texas, and this is something that will play in a lot next year. Now let's go down to Virginia. Virginia, we had 3 races to look at. As you can see, 96% of the vote in, and this one was not a surprise whatsoever. This was exactly as expected. Abigail Spanberger defeating Winsome Earl-Sears, the Republican. It was never in question who was going to win this race. Winsome was not a good candidate. She did not run a good campaign. She had a very poor debate performance where she could have had a good performance, but instead of letting Spanberger speak for herself and not do good, Winsome instead decided to attack her the entire time and thus look like a much worse candidate. So this was completely as expected. Glenn Youngkin, obviously term limited. He'll probably come back to run for Senate. at some point. So I don't think we've seen the last of Glenn Youngkin, but as governor, we have. I do think for the larger stage, we have seen the last of Winsome Earl Sears. This state also plays a lot into the government shutdown, obviously. Up here in the northern portions of the states, in Loudoun and in towns like Alexandria, Fairfax, a lot of government workers who have been either laid off or furloughed recently. And yeah, this is exactly what to expect. Now, as we go down ballot, we go to lieutenant governor. A bit of a closer race by about 4%, with John Reed losing out to, sorry if I butcher this name, Ghazala Hashmi, I believe her name is, the Democrat. This was as, oh yeah, I also should mention that for governor, first female governor of Virginia. So interesting, this is the first Muslim elected to a statewide position in Virginia. So interesting, not that interesting results here. Here's the interesting part though. Attorney General Jay Jones defeats Jason Miyares. Now this was the only race I called wrong. I called every other race last night right, had the right prediction for it. I was wrong here. I believed that Jay Jones was too damaged from his scandals that he would not be able to defeat Chase Myers. I fully believe that. I believe that having a texting scandal come out about 6 weeks before the election, that you would, murder your political opponent's children if you saw them, should not whatsoever. It should have ended his candidacy, but it did not. He managed to pull it off, obviously with a much smaller margin than Spanberger did, but he still won. And this is, it shows you what could be in store next. Are scandals going to become a thing that just mean nothing at this point? I mean, the Republican Party kind of already got there, having Donald Trump be their presidential candidate for 3 elections in a row, but now we're seeing this out of the Democrats, where scandals mean very little. If we look to Maine, where Graham Plattner was photographed with a Gestapo tattoo carved into his chest, and somehow he'll still win the primary up there and perhaps win that Senate seat. It's really interesting. And that brings us kind of back to Mayor, where Mondani has been plagued by scandals for his campaign, yet he was able to brush all those scandals off to pull through with a win in the end. And that should be a little bit surprising that it didn't hurt them as much as it should have. Just the label of a Democratic Socialist probably could have hurt him a bit, but not to mention pictures he took with people tied into the World Trade Center bombing, so however much you're willing to look into that and buy into that. But let's go to a race I was surprised by. Now, although I like Jack Ciattarelli, I never thought he would win in Jersey. That's just the way Jersey is. They're not in the position to be electing a Republican, especially if that Republican's running against someone who's a moderate, or at least appears like a moderate, like Mikey Sherrill. I didn't think it would be this big of a margin, though. Sherrill won by, as you can see here, 13%. That really surprises me. Kamala Harris won the state by 6%. So Jersey slumping back in a way towards the Democrats, but also Joe Biden won the state by 17%. So Sherrill is in between Harris and Biden, and I'd say that's the kind of the recurring theme of the night. If you remember that map from a year ago, where almost every single county or district in America shifted right, I'd say in this one they all shifted back left, not to the 2020 point, not to Biden's huge margins, but instead to in between Biden's very large margin and Harris's loss margin. But yeah, counties like Cumberland, counties like Atlantic, counties like Gloucester, if I'm saying that right, Passaic, these all went for Trump last year. This year they went for Sherrill. Especially one like Atlantic's a surprise. Now, if we look up here, Ocean County, if we remember the Jack Ciattarelli got that Hasidic Jew vote in Jersey, they endorsed him and they all went out to vote for him. That would have came in here in Ocean. That is a lot of votes, but it just ended up not being enough. So the polls were right about the winner here. They were wrong about the margin. And that's something to look to. Now, I've been looking at some national things all day. There's some other ballot measures, obviously. Colorado had their ballot measure. I do like ballot measures, but they can always be misleading. this one specifically here in Maine, I think it's very sad that this couldn't be passed. It literally just requires you to show your ID to vote, and they couldn't get it passed in Maine. And in fact, it was rejected with a very wide margin. I think that's bad. I think that obviously Maine is Maine, but for a bill that shouldn't even be political, it should just be common sense that you need to show a photo ID a photo ID, which if you are registered to vote but you don't possess a photo ID, I don't see how that is. It is easier to get a photo ID than it is to register to vote. You go to your DMV, you show them your passport or your birth certificate. You have to show them however so much. It's not like you need to do a quiz. It's not like you're paying a poll tax. It's something that everyone should already have. Even if you don't have a driver's license or maybe you still have a permit, but you should still have a photo ID. It's not something that people shouldn't have. That's Maine. We already looked at governor. Texas had their special election in the House. All Democrats. Won't really affect anything. They'll be sworn in time. Texas had their ballot measures. Prop 15, lots of stuff focused on parental rights. That seemed to be the theme of the election. As you can see here, only Austin was against it. So yeah, this resoundingly passed, which shouldn't be a surprise in Texas. Requiring citizenship to vote, another very good ballot measure, common sense ballot measure that got passed. So good on Texas for doing those. I do really love ballot measures since very pro people voting on legislation. And then in the Supreme Court, it basically was keep the Democrat majority on the court or don't keep the Democratic majority on the court. And resounding margin voted yes to keep the majority on the court, which shouldn't be too big of a surprise in a swing state like Pennsylvania. The margin like that a bit is, but I think if you look at this margin, this is going to tell you exactly what happened. Now, Pennsylvania, I would say it's about a 50-50 state, especially in voter registration. It's about a 50-50 state. You can give a 2 to 4% margin error there, but pretty even between both parties in Pennsylvania. And I think this shows you exactly the voting pattern of last night, and that is that the Democrats had immensely high turnout, not to 2020 margins, but still very high turnouts, while Republicans had very low turnouts. And that is the exact problem which we're going to see in the midterms. Democrats are energized. They finally have life breathed into them after this year of just kind of like letting Trump do whatever he wants, and Chuck Schumer being spineless in the Senate and failing to get the government back open. And well, you've had some impressive performances from people like Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker, and some governors like Wes Moore and even Gavin Newsom, although, he's Gavin Newsom, he's gaining popularity. And then you have people like Bernie and AOC doing their tour. But, the party as a whole seemed to have no life. They got their life back tonight by this immensely high turnout, whereas Republicans, without Donald Trump on the ticket, they are not going out to vote. That MAGA base did not go out and vote. They think about a city like New York City. If you're very MAGA, you're not going to vote for Andrew Cuomo because you hate Andrew Cuomo when he was governor of New York. You're probably also not going to vote for Curtis Sliwa because he's not endorsed by Trump, and he's this bit more moderate, cat owner as he's been painted, and Trump did endorse Cuomo like the evening of election, or the evening before election night, which was just way too little, way too late. And the way he endorsed Cuomo, just calling him, I'd take a bad Democrat over a communist any day. It's like, yeah, that's probably what he believes and what the party believes, but like if you actually wanted Cuomo to win, that's not how you go about endorsing him. And it's clear that no one really wanted Cuomo to win, and he did not win. So now what we look for is midterms. We're 1 year out from the midterms. It's one day from tomorrow. I believe it's either the 5th or the 6th of next year. And in the midterms, governorships will be up, Senate seats will be up. Every single House seat is on the line. And it's going to be, will the Democrats take the House or will Republicans hold the House? I don't see Democrats taking the Senate. I see the Senate staying red for a long time. Just the seats that are up next year, there aren't enough seats in danger for the Democrats to get a majority, while the seats that are up that Republicans can win would easily keep them in a majority or grow that majority. For the House, it's redistricting is going to be a lot of it. I think we're about to see gerrymandering be extremely normalized, which, whether you think that's a good or a bad thing, it will have big implications where you'll see any state that is a hard blue state or a hard red state will completely become gerrymandered to the point. You guys have been able to see my map the whole time, I hope, right? Geez, I hope so. I haven't been talking without a map, right? Well, anyways, yeah, so that's what it comes down to. Governorships, though. Governorships are something that you could see be flipping red by a lot, especially New York. Elise Stefanik is now polling higher than Kathy Hochul. She's polling higher than Antonio Delgado, and I don't see Antonio Delgado, the current lieutenant governor, I don't see him defeating Hochul. Even though Hochul is deeply unpopular, even within her own party, I don't see Delgado defeating her. And part of that is Delgado, although he appears more moderate, I've gotten to meet him a few times. He plays a moderate very well, while in reality not voting whatsoever like a moderate while he was in the House and while he was lieutenant governor. His policy-wise, he is not a moderate. Policy-wise, he is more closer to, I'd say, the AOC brand of the Democrat Party, not to the Mamdani level yet. Which kind of brings me to kind of thinking about politics right now. There's like 7 different parts on your far left, as some would call it, your DSA, your YDSA, your Ilhan Omar, your Zora Mamdani's, that group. I'd say then you have kind of the core base of the Democratic Party, which has now become AOC, Cory Booker, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer's retiring, Nancy Pelosi's retiring. They're getting out of here. The Democrats are going to run hard against that old establishment faction. They are kicking them out and kicking them out hard. Then I'd say you have your moderates. I'm the more left end of that moderate spectrum. I'd say is like a Wes Moore, the Maryland governor, who I like. Wall, and then maybe a Josh Shapiro would also be in there. And Newsom might be a bit more in the AOC branch, and same with Buttigieg. But then you have like a Fetterman, a John Fetterman at this point. I don't even know if you can consider him a Democrat because he's not voting with Democrats, and the Democrats are certainly going to attempt to throw him out of the party. And will they attempt to throw Josh Shapiro out of the party? I hope not, because that would suck to see. But Josh Shapiro, what he supports, most Democrats no longer support, even though 10 years ago they totally would have supported that, and there would have been nothing wrong with Josh Shapiro's being Jewish and supporting Israel. There would have been nothing wrong with it. Now there is. Same with Fetterman being such a deep supporter of Israel. Then you have your independents in the middle. Obviously, your undecideds, people who could go either way. Then you have moderate Republicans at this point, old school conservatives. You could put like neocons or rhinos, as they'd be called in this group. Then your MAGA base, kind of that center Trumpian red hat wearing, which is now the majority of the Republican Party. And then we have the other group, the Fuentes group, the Groypers group, the part that's kind of spurring on this Republican Civil War at the worst time possible. To make it clear my views on this, I hate him. I hate Nick Fuentes. I think he's a shitty example of a human being, but he's stealing young voters, people my age. I'm 18. He's using social media to kind of warp people's minds, which sucks to see because he uses Christianity as a tool to do that, and it's clear that he does not have any respect for true Christian beliefs and values. But yes, that's my election night reactions. Tell me what you guys think, because if you disagree with anything, let me know. That's just my opinions on everything. But yeah, I'm going to keep living in New York. We'll see how it goes. I'll make sure to keep everyone updated. But yeah, I ended up not voting in New York this year. I voted in my hometown in upstate New York, and that definitely ended up being the right move, since my one vote for either Curtis Lee or Andrew Cuomo would have meant way less in my hometown. My incumbent supervisor, which is like our mayor, she defeated her opponent by about 11 votes. Knowing I was one of those 11 votes, feels pretty good that I was able to help out up there. So yeah, that's what it comes. I hope everyone was able to get out and vote. Definitely high turnout. The question is, will turnout be higher or lower next year? Then again, anything can happen in the next year. Who knows what'll go down? But I'll make sure to keep everyone updated. Go live a few more times in the next few weeks, next few months. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right.